and he backs up out of the driveway, and he runs over the cop. And so as he speeds off, Officer Conduct is laying on the ground, a bullet wound in his chest, and he gets run over. At that point, there's another person in the apartment complex, and these people are, they're not what you would call our fine, upstanding citizens. This other guy who was in the apartment complex, he comes out with a 9mm, and he also had a relationship with this bad guy, and he starts shooting at him. And that's one of the problems we had today, and one of the delays is because out there at the scene, we had many different firearms involved. So this other guy is shooting at the suspect as he's leaving. And the reason why he's shooting at the suspect is because he thinks the suspect was there to get him as opposed to the other guy who he thinks dimed him out. So there's this whole triangle of people thinking they're out to get each other and who's going to get who, and they all got guns. So after this other person, whose name is Jareem Roach, who also has a warrant outstanding for him, after he fires, the suspect heads north on Grand, and at that point, other Tarpon Springs police officers were responding to the scene. As he's going north on Grand, the officers see him, and he comes very close to striking the cruisers of at least 2 Tarpon Springs police officers. Those officers, realizing that this person was involved in the incident that had happened at 199 Grand, turn around, and there was a brief pursuit. As they went north on Grand, the suspect turned to go curvy road up there to kind of go north on Athens Street. And as he turned north on Athens, he struck a power pole up there, just about knocked the power pole over, show you how fast he was going and the impact, how significant the impact was of the collision. He careens off the power pole and into a parked truck that's sitting in front of 533 Athens Street. During the course of this shootout, and there were a total of 14 rounds that were expended at 199 Grand. And they caused the windows of the car to blow out. So when he wrecks, he jumps out of the window of the car and he runs. And there was a Tarpon Springs police officer who was right there, Officer Rogie. He pursues him and is able to, after a foot chase, take him into custody in front of 632 Cross Street. So going back to the scene, when Officer Conduct is being shot at, he returns fire, and he fired 2 rounds. And he fired the rounds from the north side of the suspect's vehicle. So it's a situation where the suspect is unloading his gun. This cop killer is unloading his gun at the officer. The officer is being shot at. He returns 2 rounds, and then he goes to the ground. When the other officers arrived at the scene, Officer Conduct was unconscious. He was barely breathing. He was transported to the hospital here in Tarpon Springs, where he was pronounced deceased at the hospital. This guy, this cop killer, felt like a cage rat. He was going back to prison, which was where he belonged. And he had absolutely no reason to do this. He had absolutely no reason to take a police officer's life. And throughout the day today, through the investigation and through ballistic evidence and all what we were doing, we know that we have the right guy in custody, and we have the person in custody that killed a Tarpon Springs police officer. It's a tragic day for the Tarpon Springs Police Department, for law enforcement in general, and citizens in Pinellas County. But because of everybody's hard work and collaboration, we got the right guy, and he's in prison, and hopefully he never comes out of prison again, and I'm confident that he won't. So with that, that's the overview of it. There's a lot of details, a lot more details, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.